Inspiring interviews with today's top landlords. This is the Rental Income Podcast. And now, Dan Lane.
Elaine, when you decided you were going to invest in rental properties, it sounds like you found something that worked for you, and you just kept doing it over and over and over again.
You know, Gary Keller, who I think is one of the best minds in all of real estate, says that the undoing of an entrepreneur is that they get bored with what they're doing. And so I've just always followed that advice. And I have a very simple business plan, which is to buy properties, to fix them up with either physical renovations or management improvements, to do a cash out refi, and then to do it over again. And it's gotten quite boring over the years, but I keep hearing Gary Keller in my mind. And I know that sticking with what is boring, what is, I can do over and over and over, is what has led to not only great financial success, but I'm getting better and better at the process every time I do it. So the business is getting bigger and stronger.
Today, Elaine's rental income covers her living expenses several times over, and she did it by just sticking to the basics and doing really boring deals time and time again. On the show today, we're going to take a look at her portfolio. We'll figure out exactly what she did and how she got to where she is today. Joining us on the show today from Rochester, Minnesota is Elaine Stageberg. We'll take a really quick break to thank our sponsors. We'll come right back and we'll talk to Elaine. Do you have a number in mind for a certain monthly cash flow that you want to get to? Or maybe it's a certain net worth that you want to build to. Whatever your goal is, you don't need to figure out how to get there on your own. Shaylee Ridge from Ridge Lending Group is more than happy to work with you to show you how to get there. Shaylee is a longtime rental property investor, and she's also helped thousands of investors, both brand new and experienced, finance their rental portfolios. Here's how it works. Shaylee will work with you to help you figure out a realistic goal, and she'll put together a customized plan for you. As things change with either the market or with your personal financial situation, Shaylee will adjust the plan and she'll guide you to wherever it is that you want to go. The best part is there's no extra charge for this service. This is a free benefit of working with Shaylee Ridge and Ridge Lending Group. If you want to find out more or you're ready to get started today, reach out to Shaylee at ridgelendinggroup.com. That's RIDGE lendinggroup.com, NMLS 42056.
Rental Income Podcast.
Elaine, why don't we start things off talking about what the rentals have done for you and your family?
Investing in real estate, I really count it as one of the best decisions of my life because it allows my husband and I to reach financial freedom when we were in our mid-30s. And that of course, changed everything because then at a very young age, we were able to really start to think about how do we really want to spend our time. We knew we wanted to work, right? We are not the type of folks that felt like financial freedom would mean, sitting on the beach or that sort of thing. And truly, I've met very few of those people. I find that people like to work. Humans like to have a sense of purpose. But when all of a sudden we could make the decision about how we spend our time completely from what brought us joy and made us feel like it was exciting to wake up in the morning and exciting to create and add value, then everything changed. And we ultimately decided to continue to do real estate investing, and we built a property management company and really leaned into our investing. But doing so from a place of financial freedom really changed everything. And I'm so grateful we made the decision to invest in real estate. We did it in the post-2008 crash when it was really scary. I'll be completely honest that my husband wanted to invest way more than I did. I was kind of the reluctant investor. And I'm so grateful now, looking back, that we took the leap.
Today, the rentals cover all your living expenses, and then you use the business income that you make to kind of fuel your growth?
Exactly that. Yeah. So I think I think like our, the income from our rental portfolio is like 3 or 4x our financial freedom number. So not only do we have financial freedom, but we have, considerable income to do things like pay for masterminds and pay for travel and, continue to do our own personal growth. But what you're getting at there is that all along, as we were real estate we were investing in real estate, we made the decision to spend as much of the income from our investing into more investing. And we were able to cover our living needs with our salaries. And then we saved as much as we possibly could from our salaries to invest in real estate. And then our real estate was generating cash flow, debt pay down, forced appreciation through our renovations, and then also just market appreciation as time carried on. And all of that income, instead of spending it on ourselves, instead of increasing our standard of living, or at that time, decreasing the amount we worked in our careers, we kept plugging away at our careers, but we spent all of our real estate income buying more real estate. And that was tough, right? Because we were seeing these big numbers start to hit our bank account, and we, had these kind of, starry-eyed, like any human might, of, oh man, that could pay for a new car or this amazing vacation, or maybe we should upgrade our own personal home. And instead, we just kept saying, no, we are using this money to buy our freedom. We are using this money to buy our freedom. And so we did that. And that's how we were able to build a rather large portfolio in a short period of time and buy our freedom. And then today, with the financial freedom that we have, as I mentioned, our portfolio generates, way more than our financial freedom number. Again, instead of using it to, radically escalate our standard of living, we continue to use it to grow our business, to buy more real estate, knowing that every dollar that we spend on real estate today improves our future many, many fold, versus once we spend a dollar on something that's not an income producing asset, that dollar is gone. So don't get me wrong. We have luxuries. Like I said, we spend a lot on masterminds, traveling to be with like-minded people, going to conferences, like really investing in our growth, spending time with our kids. But we really think of does a dollar get life by becoming an asset, or does a dollar die by being spent on something that can't be regenerated?
I really want to learn about your boring strategy, but let's start with your first deal. How did you actually get started buying rentals?
So that was a VA foreclosure home. It had been vacant for 9 years, if you can imagine that.
Wow.
So it was in very rough shape. I look back now and quite honestly, I'm surprised that I had the courage to buy it, but it was literally all we could afford. And we did almost all of the renovations ourselves with sweat equity. We were paying for like the tile floor and the faucets and those sort of things on credit cards. We did hire professionals for some of the things like the roof and the HVAC and, the things that we needed permits and licenses for. But we were really excited about that project, really eager to be there, working together, laying tile floor, painting, cleaning, doing back-breaking, challenging work, but we knew it was for our future. So we purchased that home. We paid for a lot of the renovations on credit cards, did a lot of the renovations ourselves with sweat equity, did a cash out refi about 90 days later, pulled all of the cash out that we had used to pay for it, that we had put on our credit cards, plus an additional about $20,000. So we actually had a house that was producing cash flow plus more money after the process than before the process. And then just decided that that was our business plan. And today, hundreds of deals later, we have hundreds of millions in assets under management. It is still our business plan. We've never deviated from it. We always acquire real estate where there's an opportunity to really increase the value. We do whatever we have to do to increase the value, do a cash out refi, hold that piece of real estate, have an infinite rate of return, and then take that cash and buy the next thing.
So every property that you're looking for is something that is just beat up and run down?
Not necessarily. Things have shifted as the real estate market has changed over the last 10 years. So in the beginning, it was absolutely that. Number one, because that's what we could afford. And number two, because that's what the market had created in the post-2008 crash. But then over the last several years, as the market had become very, very strong, we found that distressed properties didn't really confer a discount. So if, let's say, a house was worth, say, $250,000 all fixed up, it needed $50,000 of renovations, it might still have sold for like 210 or even
Right.
225,000, with the thought that maybe a first-time homeowner would buy it and do the renovations themselves, or just kind of deal with, maybe some of the less glamorous parts of the house, but just be excited about home ownership. And so when the market had kind of shifted toward that, then we moved our business model a little bit toward buying homes that needed what we would call like a shine. Like maybe they were kind of ugly, but were otherwise great homes. So we'd like take out carpet and put in LVP, put in new light fixtures and plumbing fixtures, but really not put, truly a lot of dollars into the home.
Right.
But they were in great neighborhoods that were appreciating quickly. So when the market was weaker, we looked more for forced appreciation. And when the market was stronger, we looked more for market appreciation. And now, in late 2022, going into 2023, it's likely that the market might soften a little bit as interest rates go up. So we'll move back toward looking for distressed properties that have a discount and adding value through, big renovations. It's all the same business plan. You can kind of think of it as just moving the levers a little bit depending on what deals are out there.
Is there a certain type of house that you like to buy, like a certain setup, say 3 bedrooms or 2 bedrooms, a certain number of baths? Like, is there a target property that you're searching for?
In our market, we're in the Midwest, and we really like 4-bed, 2-bath, 2-car garage homes. So we will buy 3 beds, we'll buy 2 beds, we'll buy 1 bath, we'll buy 2 baths. We won't buy anything that doesn't have a garage because we are in an area where there's a lot of snow. So we find that that is a big deal for almost all renters, is that they have a garage. It can be detached or attached, but there has to be a garage. We tend not to go higher than 4 bedrooms because we find that the rental rate doesn't justify the additional square footage of the home. So maybe the rental rate is an additional, let's say $100 per month, but it's just much more house that needs to be maintained. So 4-bed, 2-bath, 2-car garage homes. I kid you not, we have probably a few dozen of nearly the exact same floor plan homes. Like you walk in and you're like, yep, if you turn left, there's the bedrooms, and the bathroom is always one left and then one right. I mean, you can just walk through these houses with your eyes closed, because we know that they rent really well. And we know that in our market, when you close your eyes and you think of a house, that's what people think of. And so we just looked for that over and over and over. And again, Gary Keller says the undoing of any entrepreneur is deviating from what's boring. Once we found the prototypical house that everyone wanted, we bought them over and over and over again. We do a lot of multifamily now as well. And we own, most of our multifamily is within about a mile or 2 of each other. So we're very concentrated because we know that's the area where in our market, people who live in apartments want to live in that area because it's very walkable to work and restaurants and parks and those sorts of things. And so once we find the thing that really works, we just do it over and over and over again and get as good at it as we possibly can and really develop expertise in that small area so that we can outmaneuver everyone else that's working in that very small niche.
Now, the other thing about your business that I think is pretty amazing is it sounds like you don't have much turnover, that your tenants tend to stay with you for a long time.
Yep. Yeah, I would say so. More on the single family side than the multifamily side. But we really think of real estate investing is really investing in relationships. Kind of a joke that I will say is no one dreams of buying a rental home and then saying, oh, I'm just going to leave it vacant. I'm just doing this just to own the real estate. No, it's the relationship with the tenants. That's where the value comes from. They're the ones that pay you to live there. They take care of the property. They keep the utilities on. They're essentially a security force, right? Showing up to the home every day, sleeping in it, locking the doors. So we really think of ourselves as customer service operators that happen to do real estate investing. People love it and people stay.
And you don't use the word tenant when you're talking to your tenants, right? That's one of your principles?
Yeah, we really like the word resident. And tenant, resident, they're all legally the same thing. But tenant is a bit of a pejorative. So is landlord, right? So how crazy is that there's this relationship that many people in the country are a part of. About 30 to 50% of people are living in rental housing, and yet both sides of the equation are dissatisfied. And so we wonder, how can we change that? So we think of the people living in the homes as residents. We think of ourselves as being in the customer service industry and making it so that both sides of the relationship are excited. The residents like living in well-maintained homes where they have a lot of freedom, right? They can end their lease, they can move, they can travel. Like, a lot of people don't like home ownership for various reasons, and that's okay, but they still want an excellent living experience. And we love to be in the customer service industry, and then also to do that, via real estate investing, which is the most, financially advantageous way to reach financial freedom. And thinking of that relationship with those lenses is so much more interesting and empowering and exciting than, kind of the historical landlord tenant sort of just adversarial relationship. Like, it doesn't need to be that way. There's such a better way out there when you think about how can these two parties in this relationship meet each other's needs.
Now, the very low turnover that you have is really, I think, how you win as a landlord. If you can keep a tenant in there and keep them paying and keep them happy, you're going to be that much more profitable. Do you think that your tenants stay because your customer service is so good, or because the houses are such high quality, or does it all work together?
It absolutely all works together. So first of all, we really think of the renting experience starting with marketing. So in case it's not obvious to the listener yet, we do all of our own property management. We started that when we had just one single home. We do that today with over 1,000 doors. We've created a property management company because we really think that management is where most of the value is in real estate investing. Again, kind of going back to that joke of you wouldn't buy a rental home and just leave it empty for 30 years. It's the relationship with the resident that creates the value. So things like answering the phone, having excellent photos on the portals like Zillow and apartments.com, having an amazing leasing experience where it's easy to see the home, it's easy to do the application, it's exciting. And again, it has that customer service focus way back when it was my husband and I doing that work, and today with the leasing team that we have. And then the day someone moves in, we are immediately thinking about their renewal. We may not say that to them directly, but we're immediately thinking about, we want it to be a very warm, inviting experience when they move into their home. So we have a little gift basket for them. We meet them personally. Anything that they find in the first couple of days, we go out of our way to fix it. We usually, of course, we have a very exhaustive checklist and everything before someone moves in. But people, tend to find things in the first couple of days when they move in, and we have a handy person like pre-scheduled. Okay, you're moving in on Monday. The handy person's coming on Thursday. So anything that you find that's just not perfect, you just let us know, and we have that blocked time to make sure that this is a perfect living experience for you. And then all the way through that customer service experience of having an easy rent process, an easy maintenance process, communicating with them, sending birthday cards for the folks living in our properties that we know are veterans. We send them a card on Veterans Day. We send a card and some candy at the end of the year for the holiday season. Small things that really are not that expensive, really don't take that much time. Again, we were doing it when we had one property. We're doing it now with 1,000. But it makes a little bit of a difference, just continually reminding the people living in our homes that we value them, that we appreciate them, that we're here for them, that we want them to have a great living experience. We want them to have a great maintenance experience. Maintenance is often a pain point for residents. And so when it comes time to talk about renewal, the conversations are so funny because they're like, well, of course, like, well, where would I go? It's almost like they have forgotten that there are other rental opportunities out there. That they're just like stunned. They're like, well, I mean, of course I'm staying. Why are we even having this conversation? Because it's more than just a place to live. It's a living experience. So for the listener, kind of hear that again. It's more than just a place to live. It's a living experience.
Now, let me ask you this about budgeting for repairs and vacancy. This is something that comes up a lot on the show, and I think you've got an interesting perspective as someone that started out with a small portfolio and now you have a big portfolio. I think when you're starting out, it's so important to have an emergency fund because something like a hot water heater could knock you out of the game if you don't have enough cash reserves. But as you get a bigger portfolio, is it less important to have money aside because you've got so much cash flow with 1,000 rent checks coming in that you can handle a hot water heater no problem? So is it less important to have money saved, or is it more important because you can have a lot of things go wrong all at the same time?
So I will refer to two amazing thought leaders and visionaries that are much smarter than myself. The first is Simon Sinek. So he's an author and a thought leader, has nothing to do with real estate, but he wrote the book, The Infinite Game, which is the idea that you play a game to stay in the game. You don't play a game to win. You play a game to stay in the game. And then Keith Cunningham, he is a real estate investor, a great business leader, just a really accomplished person. And he says that in any business, not just real estate, but in any business, the game is over when you run out of cash. So if Simon says that the point of playing the game is to stay in the game, which is likely true for most real estate investors, right? We don't want to reach financial freedom. Oh, I got there, then I quit, right? The point of financial freedom is to keep the financial freedom going, hopefully for the entire lifetime and potentially, even generationally. So if Simon says the point of being in the game is to stay in the game, and if Keith says that you lose the game when you run out of cash, then the logical conclusion is that you have to stay liquid. You have to have cash. And the way that someone might structure that changes. So when someone has a small portfolio, they might structure it as X number of dollars per property. And that, depends on someone's market, how large their properties are, how renovated their properties are. We've always been big believers of doing big renovations right at time of acquisitions in the hopes that lowers the maintenance needs in an ongoing fashion. And then as a portfolio gets larger, maybe it's a percentage of earnings or a smaller amount, per door. But whatever it is, my husband and I joke that in our business, I am the chief risk officer. So I tend to want more liquidity than maybe he does. He maybe wants to buy the next deal or do the next thing. And I'm like, let's stay very liquid. So I think it's a personal decision and everyone has to decide, what makes the most sense for them, where they fall on the risk spectrum, what sources of income they have, if they're still working in a day job versus not, how much cash flow their properties are generating. But all in all, I would say, my personal philosophy is stay very liquid. Cash keeps you in the game. The point of the game is to keep going. And you're absolutely right. You never know what might happen. Is there a possibility where a house, maybe you have a portfolio of 10 houses and one of them needs a roof and one of them needs a water heater and one of them is vacant and one of them, needs a big renovation all at the same time? Yeah, maybe unlikely, but certainly not impossible. And I would hate for someone to lose their portfolio or to really get into a tough spot over not believing that many things can happen at once. Whoever would have predicted COVID? Turns out COVID happened to be good for, most real estate investors, but it could have just as easily been the case that COVID was bad for real estate investors. And I don't think in 2018 or 19, most real estate investors were thinking, I need to have pandemic on my list of contingencies that might happen. And yet those that were liquid fared so much better through COVID than those that were not.
Here's what I think is the key to Elaine's success is that at the very beginning, she was finding really cheap, beat up, rundown properties. She was fixing the properties up. She was putting in a lot of sweat equity. She was fixing up the properties herself. And then after the property was fixed up, she was doing a cash out refi. She was taking out money, and now she had money to buy her next property. And then at the same time, they were saving up the cash flow that the rentals were generating. They were saving money from their job. They just kept putting money into their rental business and just kept building it up. And yeah, they took a very big sacrifice. They could have bought new cars. They could have got a bigger house, but they really stayed focused on buying the next rental property. And they just kept doing this over and over and over again. And now they're at 1,000 rentals that are generating cash flow every month. I think it was really smart also that Elaine picked a very small area to work in. She really got expertise in that area. She figured out the floor plan that people wanted. She figured out what tenants were looking for in a rental, what neighborhoods they wanted to be in. And then once she had a good tenant, she kept that tenant. It sounds like she's got a great relationship with her residents. It sounds like she really takes care of them. And that just makes her even more profitable because she has less turnover cost. She's not having to deal with as much vacancy as she would if she was turning over constantly. So I think when you compound this and you just keep doing this over and over and over again, it's easy over a period of time to get to a very big portfolio. So I'm really impressed. I think Elaine did a great job with building out her portfolio. If anybody wants to learn more about Elaine, or if you want to reach out to her, I've got her website on my website. You can find it at rentalincomepodcast.com/episode 393. Well, if Elaine inspired you and you're ready to buy your first rental property or you want to add to your portfolio, the lender that I recommend is our sponsor today. It's Chaley Ridge from Ridge Lending Group. Chaley is a nationwide lender, and her specialty is helping investors finance rental properties. She has a ton of different loan programs, and if you want to learn more, you can track Chaley down at ridgelendinggroup.com. That's RIDGE lendinggroup.com, NMLS 42056. Thank you so much for checking out the podcast today. I'll be back with a new episode next Tuesday. My name is Dan Lane, and this has been the Rental Income Podcast.